Welcome everybody to the Kolbach Shul. We're live now. I want to thank Rabbi Citron for giving us this time slot and everybody who participated in making this event possible. Big Yashar Koach and a Chazak Baruch. Anochi Hashem Elokecha asher hotzeticha meretz Mitzrayim mibeit abadim. I am Hashem, your God, who took you out of Mitzrayim, from the house of slavery. Okay, this is a famous pasuk, a famous verse that's in the Ten Commandments. It's the first commandment that says, I am Hashem. Now it's interesting, where is the commandment? It just says, I am Hashem. And yet, if you look in the Maimonides, the Rambam, he numbers this as the number one first commandment of the 613, of the do's and the don'ts. So where's the do or the don't here? It's just a statement. How did it make it into the 613 if it doesn't have a positive or negative word to it? Why isn't it like any other verse that has statements? Because that is really one of the secrets to understanding this commandment. Is it's supposed to be something that's a natural thing. It's not meant to be something to do. It's something that's meant to be natural. It just comes to you. When you have a relationship with God, with Hashem, or at least try and build one, which is the commandment, you don't have to be told, do it. You will do it. It's something that will come naturally as you do certain steps, which the Maimonides explains. When you, let's say, study the world, and you study things that Hashem is doing, and you see how His kindness is all over us, and things like that, you automatically come to know Him. So it's not like you have to know Him as doing something, because what are you going to do? If you don't know Him, what are you going to do to know Him? Just say hello there? So there really isn't anything to do in that sense, but there's kind of behind the scene things to do, which is the things that the Rambam explains, to study Hashem in His world, and thereby automatically you are getting to know Him. So it's interesting that it's worded as a statement, not as a commandment. It's a big revelation, just to teach us that it's something that if you do certain steps, it will come naturally. Unlike eating kosher, let's say, you do it or you don't. It's not something come naturally. You either do it or you don't do it. But knowing who God is something that if you do certain steps, you will automatically feel a love and a fear for Him, which are two other commandments, loving God and fearing God. Ahavat Hashem and Yirat Hashem. And it all stems from this pasuk, this verse, which is Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am God. So what are we supposed to do now? Let's say we want to embark on getting to know who this Creator is. It's kind of a not so heard topic. We don't hear this too much. Get to know God. We get to know some of the mitzvot, get to know some of the Gemarot and Shulchan Aruch, some of the laws. But what do we know about God? What is there to study? There's a whole world to study. So that has to be something that's of major priority, not to be left behind the scenes. This is something that's very important. How do we know it's important? Because it's commandment number one. It's commandment number one out of the 10 commandments. And remember, the 613 flow out of the 10 commandments. So it means it's number one, not of just 10, it's number one of all 613. I am Hashem, to get to know God. So He obviously wants us to do that. He put it as number one. So it's certainly, again, not something to leave on the back burner. So what would we do? We have to study Him and His world. That's what we do. If you remember Avraham Avinu, how did he find God? He studied the world around him. The sciences and the way things were working, he kind of put two and two together and realized that there was a God masterminding the whole thing. Now he knew even the delicate things of the Kabbalah, of the Kabbalistic teachings, obviously came from Abraham, from Abraham. So it wasn't just a simple studying the sciences and getting to know that there's somebody there. It was obviously very intense, and he had some kind of a knowledge that passes that simple statement, because he got into very deep things. So it means there is what to do and what to study and what to find out as a result of it. So there's two things again. We have to study God and His world. Okay? Now let's start with studying God Himself. Now when you take on a challenge of studying God, you run into a problem. You know what the problem is? Problem is, we don't know anything. And it's not that we don't know anything, we can't know anything. There's something about God that's a statement like this. To know God is to be God. No one can know him because he's so out of the realm and out of the box of what we are. We can't know that. And I'll give you some examples how we can understand that. There is a verse, a pasuk in the Torah that says something about God. You know, what am I talking about? There's many verses that say things about God. Why am I saying we can't know him? Anybody want to say a few things that come to mind about what the Torah says about God? We certainly have things that describe him. Someone just say something, if you can think about it, because it's good to think a second.
Loving, merciful.
Very good. He's Rahum, he's Chanun, he has Ahava. Okay, very good. But that is tricky. See, when I say he is merciful, let's say, that shows his action. He's doing mercy. So the Torah is filled with what he does, but there's nothing about who he is. There's not a word about who he is.
Cool.
All those attributes, the 13 attributes, right, that we say all the time, especially on Yom Kippur. I think we say it 26 times because that's the name of Hashem. You can count them up. But everyone has different minhagim, different customs. They're all what he does. Even love is an action. Because he does it. He'll display a loving act towards you. But what is he? What is he himself? There's nothing to know. We can't know that. Now it's interesting enough that there is still a verse that says, it actually doesn't say, but it touches on him, not on his action. There's one verse. Who can figure that one out?
I will be what I will be.
Interesting. The Ekyeh She'ekyeh. That's not bad. We're going to get to that. Very good. Any other guesses? It's a famous one. We say it all the time. Well, I'll just say the answer. A verse that describes who God is and not just what he does. Very good. You're 2 for 2. Good for you, David Shvaki. Let's say your name.
I'm famous.
It's Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Okay, Hashem Echad, God is one. Being one is not an action, is it? Mm-hmm. So that's already touching on more of himself. And we're going to analyze what one means, okay? Now still, let's just look at why did I say it touches on it and it doesn't really describe it? Because to be one only means there's one, like here, this cup. If I say there's one of them, there's not two, it still doesn't tell me what the cup is. It just says there's only one of whatever in the world it is. But it's still not an action. It's getting closer to him, even though it still doesn't touch it. It still doesn't touch him. It just says that there's only one of it, whatever that one thing is. We don't know still. But that one word of one is closer than the others. It's like it's getting closer to him, you see? So in that word, we're going to learn a lot. Even though we're still not going to know anything. But we're still going to learn a lot. It's interesting. To study God, and this is another topic, but I don't want to veer off, but to study God is to study who he is not what he is. You notice sometimes we say he has no body, ein lo guf, ein lo dimut haguf, he has no, build of a body, all these things. Ein lo erech, ein lo dimyon, all these kind of words. All what he doesn't have. Tell me what he does have. Don't just tell me he doesn't have a body like us, he doesn't have things like us, he doesn't work like us, his mind is not like us. All these kind of words in our prayers, because we don't know what he is. It's not available. So we only say what he's not. But to learn what he's not enough is the learning of God. That's the only way to do it. That is called learning God. Because now it's like you've made him bigger than anything you can imagine. It's like he's not that. And then you learn something, how let's say there's a malach who's very great. And then you say he's not even that. He's higher than that. So every time you see something and you say he's not that, you really see him higher, even though you don't still know anything about him. Now just to get one thing clear, even though we don't know who he is as though to point to him, that doesn't mean we don't have a loving relationship. You can still feel him. So the relationship of love and all that is still there. Don't think now because we're realizing that we can't touch him, that now there's no relationship. It's like we're losing him. Nothing to that effect. It just, we don't know what's in his guts. That's all it is. Because he's something that's beyond our existence. But the relationship is still there. He can be whatever he is and still maintain a relationship. That's what he does. And we can feel that. And when you feel that, there's an exhilaration that you feel. And a simcha, a happiness, a real happiness. Not a fake happiness, which is what people try and do today. They try and go here and parties and this kind of thing because they're trying to get some kind of feeling happy. That's a false happiness or an artificial happiness. We're looking for a real inner peace happiness that's only found when you have a relationship with God. Everything else, it's interesting, everything else is not really happiness. You know what it is? It's simply to drain out the depression. That's what everyone's running around for those things for. It doesn't really bring happiness, but obviously it does something because everyone's running there. It simply drains out the depression that we all have. So you feel less of the depression, so you think you're getting happier. But there's really nothing there. There's nothing there.
1 second. What drains out the depression?
Oh, although, parties and, non-kosher parties, and all these kind of things that everyone's running around for. Manhattan is filled with it. You see, just look outside. Where's everyone running? And then there's no time to pray. There's no time to learn because we have so many other things to do. The world is filled with things to do. I don't want to get off on this topic. Okay, so let's analyze Hashem Echad. God is one. This word one is very, very meaningful. If you look in many books like the Ramchal, and even in Hasidic books, like in the Tanya, they're always talking about the yichud of Hashem, the oneness of God. There's a big idea in that because it's playing on the word of Echad, that He's one. Now, what in the world is there to say about God that He's one? How can there be a lengthy discussion about being one? There's one, not two. That's it. What else is there to say? But the truth is, it's such a profound concept that you'll see what there is to say. Okay, one has 3 ideas in it. There's 3 ideas in the word one. And they are Echad, one. Yachid. Yachid also means one. But it means singular. Well, we'll analyze it. They all really means one. But we have to analyze the real definition, not just the translation, okay? There's Echad, one. There's Yachid, one. And there's Miyuchad. Okay, Miyuchad with the mem. Miyuchad, which also means one. Really, Yachid means singular. Miyuchad can also mean special, but that kind of means like you're a one-of-a-kind type of a thing. But this is just, again, the English words. But they really mean one, and we're going to analyze the true definition of each one. Okay, Echad, the first one, which is one. There's 2 types of oneness, the word Echad. There's something called relative oneness and absolute oneness, or unity. Okay, absolute unity or relative unity. What does that mean? Relative means relative to something else. When you say something's relative to something else. So it means like this. Let's say you have a beautiful painting, okay, that somebody painted. And there's only one of them. One-of-a-kind painting in the world. So that's one. It's called Echad. This painting is one. Okay? That's called relative oneness. Why relative? Because the guy who painted it could have made a second one. But he didn't want to. Or he didn't have time. So it's true it's the only one around, but it didn't have to be.